I like this house. It belonged to an old silent film movie star who was up there, Lucille. I like antiques. I like old things. I must be very old underneath because I love beautiful old things. I love dancing. I love most of all writing songs.
We're very aware from the very beginning that music was going to be my life. I did have this amazing granddad who played music and wrote songs and played amazing mouth harp and harmonica. And one day he went and bought a whole bunch of 45s for me from a record store that was going out of business and brought them all to our house in El Paso, Texas. And he and I sat for days and played all of these songs. And that's when I first heard like the Everly Brothers, and that's when I first heard Buddy Holly and all the kind of rockabilly acts, you know.
I've been made blue. I've been lied to. When will I be loved? That'll be the day when you make me cry. You say you're gonna leave. You know it's a lie, 'cause that'll be the day when I die.
My granddad desperately wanted to be a country singer. And he wanted it more than anything in the world, and he gave up pretty much his family for it. But he kind of remains in my mind as one of those people that gave it his best, you know. And when he wasn't making money playing, he played pool, and he supported himself. He's a flash pool player, and he could beat anybody. You know, that's how he supported himself, was pretty much playing pool. And we only saw him once every couple years, and he'd come home and we'd sing, and he'd want to take me with him, and my parents would get real angry, and he'd get real angry, and he'd leave, and then we wouldn't see him again for a couple of years. When he walked out that door, we knew he was mad and he was gone. But he was just as temperamental as I was, you know, and they said, wow, we should have named her Jessica because she's just like Jessie. One of these days she's gonna go with him. One of these days she's gonna pack up, she's gonna say, I'm going with him. And so they managed to keep that from happening, but at 82 years old, he and I were still singing duets.
Which is why I love to sing duets. And so I started singing, even my mother says, when I was really a baby. And I just always loved to sing, and I never took music classes, and I never took glee club, and I never wanted to do that singing. I just sang by myself all the time.
In high school, I was never in chorus, never in drama, even though I'm incredibly dramatic. I just wanted to do my own thing. I was playing guitar, though. When I was 15 and a half, I got my first guitar, and it was little Goya that parents bought for my guitar teacher, and I took 8 lessons. I learned chords and also a little bit of real classical guitar. He went to Spain, and I got the guitar, and that's all the guitar lessons I took. But those 8 lessons made it possible for me to write in Goldust Woman and Landslide. My guitar teacher and I wrote my first song on my 16th birthday, and it was called I've Loved and I've Lost, and I only can remember one verse of it. I don't know if there was a chorus or... So it went, I've loved and I've lost, and I'm sad but not blue. I once loved a boy who was wonderful and true, but he loved another before he loved me, and I knew he still wanted her. 'Twas easy to see. That's all I remember. But that was my first song.
I never stopped writing since. I didn't get a piano until I was about 25. So I played guitar and wrote all my songs on guitar. I think I always knew that I didn't have the innate talent, like, say, Lindsay, at 8 years old, laying around playing the guitar. I mean, he played the guitar all day long. Well, I played the guitar from when I was 16 until I was, you know, about 25, 6, and I still play a little, but it never came in, that innate ability to be Eric Clapton, and I waited for it to come in, and it didn't. So when I started to play the piano, it was easier for me because all I had to do was like chord, and I could sit there and figure that out, but on the guitar, I was baffled. You know, even though I play real good rhythm guitar, actually, but when I went to the piano, it was like I could sit there for days, you know, and I never had a piano. My family never had a piano. So I started writing pretty much on piano. In 1966.
Lindsay and I met when he was a junior in high school and I was a senior in high school. And we met at some kind of ridiculous little meeting that somebody had that was a good reason to get out of the house on Wednesday nights, legally. And Lindsay was sitting singing California Dreaming, and I walked over and I just looked at him and went, what an absolutely gorgeous man. I wonder if he would mind if I would sing this song with him, because I knew the song perfectly. And I just said, well, He doesn't like it. All he can do is hit me over the head with his guitar. So I sang it with him, and it came out really good. And then I never saw him again until 2 years later. His drummer called and asked if I wanted to be in a rock and roll band with him.
A band called Fritz.
We can fly so high, we never won't die. To be wild, to be born, to be wild.
And so they'd been in a rock and roll band for 2 years by then, and I hadn't been. I had been playing basically Joni Mitchell kind of folk music that I loved, and writing, and playing, you know, for my friends, and playing for some public kind of things, but I was just practicing mostly. And I said, well, I really don't have a clue about what it's like to be in a rock and roll band, but hey, why not? Sure, I'll do it. And so they picked me up, I went to rehearsal, and the next thing I knew, 2 weeks later, I was on stage in front of 75,000 people opening for Jimi Hendrix. And yes, I was nervous, real nervous. I think that my granddad was the reason my parents were scared, even though they knew that there was no way they were going to stop me from doing what I wanted to do. They tried in their own little ways by saying, well, you have to go to college or we won't support you. And I said back to them, well, I'll go to college and I'll sing. And that wasn't an easy thing to do, to go to 5 years of college and practice every single night and do shows Friday and Saturday. But I managed, because otherwise I would have been too broke to do either. So center Fred's front stage with a tambourine, all by my little self, me. This didn't go over very well with the band because I got all the attention and I really didn't do anything except just sing one part, you know, and play this tambourine that I didn't even know how to play at that point. And so I was the one that they would call and say, can we book the band with a little blondie, brown-haired girl in it? And this would just infuriate the rest of the band. They'd go, you know, we do all the work, we practice all week, she goes to school, she does everything else, and she gets all the credit, and we hate that. But they also knew that without me, their 75,000 people shows were going to drop in a big way.
It's more than you need. I won't take a lead. I've catered your thirst and your wishes came first. But now you succeed in showing your greed. Well, enough has been said. You won't go ahead. I've no further use for your own kind. I'm not inclined to let you gain your mind and take advantage of me.
I had no idea. For the next 5 years of my life, not only would I have this relationship with Lindsey Buckingham, but I would also go to college, 5 years, going straight through junior to upper college, and have to drive from Stanford University down to Menlo Atherton, which is like an hour on the freeway at 5:30, and practice until midnight, and then drive back, and also study. And they weren't going to college, so they didn't really care. I wanted to be in a rock and roll band. And I also realized that I'd found in Lindsey a duet singer, which was my grandfather, right? It was that close Everly Brothers thing that I have, which is what Lindsey and I are really famous for, is that, you know, if he's singing this one, I'm singing just an ever so slightly tiny bit higher than him.
Well, you know me, I'm a nomad. I can't feel bad about the way I am. I've been rolling around my whole life. You're my candle bright in the window.
Lindsey and I, we were both going with somebody else at that time, but some people from Los Angeles saw us, Keith Olsen, the guy who produced our first album, and they really liked us, and they kind of brought us down to Los Angeles, and it was obvious then that they were going to try to break up the band. I mean, they were going to try to take me and Lindsey away from the rest of the band, and we knew it, and we didn't like it, and it was really sad, and that's what drove Lindsey and I together, and that's why we started going together. It was because we were so upset and so uptight about what, again, the music industry was doing to us. They were purposely separating a group of 5 people that had been together for 3.5 years that really loved each other, and they were breaking us up purposely, and we knew it. And they succeeded. They broke us up. And so that's when Lindsey and I moved down to Los Angeles by ourselves and started Buckingham Nicks.
We moved from San Francisco to LA with about 9 songs that Lindsey and I had recorded on his 4-track Ampex. We spent about a year in a little tiny room recording these songs, and when we were done, we got a deal with Polydor in about 3 months.
We moved to Los Angeles, beginning of 1972. In my Toyota, that was Lindsey named The Pocket, for in the pocket, right, in the book. And we drove to LA, and we lived with Keith Olsen, who was our producer. We signed the Buckingham Nicks contract. And we did an album that is now ours, actually. Lindsay and I bought it.
I didn't understand, nor did I like this world in Los Angeles. I didn't like the Buckingham Nicks cover. I didn't like the fact that I had to sit there with Lindsay with no blouse on. I spent my last $111 on this blouse. Right? I didn't eat for days because you found it. I walked smiling on this picture.
I sat in a room with Lindsay for 9 months in his father's coffee plant, a little tiny room that lived in this, while we did half of the songs on that record on a 4-track Ampex. Like we'd go when the workers went home. We'd go at 7 o'clock and we'd stay until 6:30, all night long, up by the Cow Palace in San Francisco. And I would sit there every night, all night long, and listen to him put like the lead on So Afraid, or the 7-minute acoustical version of Frozen Love, which he just plays all the way through.
Frozen Love is a strange song, and Lindsay worked very hard on it. That's the reason that I split that. That's the only song I've ever said was written by me and somebody else, because he wrote the middle part, the whole beautiful middle part. And it took a long time, that song. I mean, over a period of months and months and months and months of putting it together. It was a difficult song. Fleetwood Mac did that on stage for a while, and it's a really interesting song to do on stage.
You may not be strong. I may not care to teach you. That's all I remember.
My grandfather's life wasn't very happy. He did not have a happy musician's life. And he just rode the rails and traveled all over the United States and played great pool. And that's how he kind of supported himself. But he really wanted to make it in the music business, and he didn't. And he was fairly bitter about it, I think. When I showed him the Buckingham Nicks album, I saw for a second a look cross his face, like, she's gonna make it, and I didn't. But it went away very fast, but I saw it, because I was very close to him. And you know, that's how we are, we that love music and want to be in the music business. It's like, if you don't make it and you're 80 years old, and that's when I showed him the record, you're like, well, that's great and I'm really happy for you, but my life has just been a total bummer.
It's dropped by Polydor. It's out 3 months and it's dropped by Polydor. And Lindsay and I think that the world has ended because we have had a taste of the finer things, and we are back to square one.
It was hard, you know, when you practice that hard and you sound that good, and everybody tells you that you're not commercial and you should do something else. You just want to say, well, obviously we are not from the same planet.
I get a job in a restaurant because I'm practical, and I cleaned my producer's house twice a week, and he paid me $250 a month for that. I was doing that to support my music pals, Lindsay, and some other friends too, you know, that didn't have hardly anything. So I was the one who actually was able to pay the rent and pay the money to keep our Toyota running, and I didn't mind at all because I did not expect my boyfriend, Lindsay, to get a job, because what in the world would he do? I wrote Landside in Aspen 3 months before I joined Fleetwood Mac, along with Rhiannon. That's where the snow-covered mountains came from. When I was up there, Lindsay was on the road with the Everly Brothers, and I was very unhappy and lonely, and trying to figure out why he was out with the Everly Brothers and I was in Aspen with $40 and my dog and my Toyota that had frozen the day we got there. And we thought he was going to make like lots of money. He didn't. He came back to Aspen and he was very angry with me and left me. Took Ginny, the poodle, and the car and left me in Aspen the day that the Greyhound buses went on strike. I had a bus pass, because my dad was president of Greyhound. I had a bus pass. I could go anywhere, right? I said, fine, take the car and the dog. I have a bus pass. I had a strep throat also. He drove away. I walk in, on the radio it says, Greyhound buses on strike all over the United States. I'm going, oh no, I'm stuck. So in order to get out of Colorado, I had to call my parents, and they unwillingly sent me a plane ticket because they didn't understand what I was doing up there in the first place. So I followed him back to Los Angeles. And I was definitely doing a lot of reflecting. There was a moment towards the end of 1974 where I was really getting tired of being a waitress. And I was really, really getting tired of being just so poor. We could not afford to buy anything except just enough food to eat, and that was it, and gas for our car. During that year, I considered, if we do this record and it, and we have no luck with it, maybe I'll just go back to school for a year. And at least I'll be able to breathe, to not have to be working on music all night long and being a waitress all day. And so this didn't do a lot for our relationship, because fear never helps relationships. And when you are kind of scared about where your next money is coming from, or how are you gonna keep this whole boat afloat, it's really nerve-wracking, and that's hard on a relationship, and it was very hard on our relationship. And there were points during that time where I was like, this is never gonna work, and we're gonna end up breaking up, and everything we've worked for is gonna be done, and it's all gonna be for nothing. That's really what the song Landslide is about. To give that up because our relationship wasn't working, I just, made many different decisions along the way. Is it worth staying in this relationship to keep this music together? And my opinion always was, yes, it is. What we have to offer is way better than what I have to offer by myself or what he has to offer by himself.
Well, I've been afraid of changing, 'cause I built my life around you. But time makes you bolder, children get older, and I'm getting older too.
Lindsay and I lived in an apartment on Fairfax and Orange Grove in Los Angeles, from Candace, down from Candace. And Richard Dasher, who ended up to be one of our producers because we took Richard with us, we weren't going alone. And I guess Mick Fleetwood just went out to a studio in Los Angeles that's out in the valley that's called Sound City. It's right across the freeway from like this huge brewery. So you can never get lost because you always smell beer and know that you're coming upon Sound City. So you turn off and you go to this place. And he went there to check out Keith Olsen's work. So Keith put on Frozen Love. What did Fleetwood Mac need? They needed a guitar player. And in Frozen Love, Lindsay does an incredible job. And he's also an incredible lead guitar player when he wants to be. And Mick Fleetwood said, here's Peter Green for us. And Fleetwood Mac is famous for their guitar players. And the reason I told you we lived on Orange Grove in Fairfax was because Christine's mother was very psychic. And the last thing that Chris's mom said to her before she died was, you will find it on Orange Grove. And of course, Christine, with her dry English humor, is sure she's going to be like picking oranges, right, somewhere in an orange grove in California. And they found us on Orange Grove.
Fleetwood Mac came exactly at the right time because it was going to start to not be much fun anymore.
They called on New Year's Eve '74. January 1st, 1975, Lindsay and I ran out to Tower Records and spent our last pennies on all the Fleetwood Mac records, which were several. We listened to all of them back to front to decide whether or not we thought that we could actually add something to this band. And I actually thought that we could. I said, I think there's a very mystical side to this band. 2 days later, we went to dinner in Venice to some Mexican food place, and all of us met, and then I've been told by the rest of the band that it all hinged on whether Christine McVie liked me or not. So it was all Chris's decision. And what happened was, when I met Christine McVie, I absolutely adored her. She was funny and English and that total dry wit. She was like an amazing piano player and an amazing singer. And from what Mick and John says, she said, I love this girl. She's not arrogant, she's sweet, and she's loving, and she loves us, and she loves our music, and I think that it's going to be great. We went into rehearsal 3 days later, went into the studio a month later, and by the end of that summer, 6 months later, Lindsay and I together were a combined millionaire. And the first thing I did was move out of my apartment with Lindsay and into an apartment by myself. And then Lindsay moved in with me about 5 months later. Lindsay and I were a little bit on the rocks when we joined Fleetwood Mac. And then we kind of decided to stay together because we knew if we were like breaking up, that would kind of wreck the band. We knew we had a good thing going.
Baby, in everything you've done, even though you stopped the sun from shining.
At first, I didn't really think they needed another girl singer. They already had one. So I went through some moments of thinking that I was simply being hired because they couldn't get Lindsay without me. I know for a fact that that's how they felt, because why shouldn't they? They needed a guitar player. They did not need another girl singer, especially one that didn't really play piano or guitar or anything. It's human nature. There was no possible way that I was going to believe what they were looking for was a second girl singer. I was willing to to realize that logically I was lucky to get asked to join the band at all, and that if I wanted to be in Fleetwood Mac, I was going to have to really figure out a gimmick. And they knew it. They got it. They understood that I felt this way. And they never made me feel unwanted, and they never made me feel like excess baggage. And Christine very willingly gave me stage, which I thought was very cool of a woman to say, oh, she's 5 years younger than me, and I've worked for 10 years on the road, killed myself, and here she is, Rhiannon. It was incredibly, incredibly big of Christine.
This is a song from our latest album that was out about 7 or 8 weeks ago. This is a song from Stevie Nicks called Rhiannon.
She's a pianist, and she wanted to be one of the boys. So she wanted to be over there on the side. She was not at all unhappy when Lindsay and I came into the group and came in as lead singers, because she didn't want to be out there with a microphone. She didn't want to do that. She didn't want to dance, and she wanted to play, and she wanted to be one of the guys, because she was the only girl that was the great musician that was one of the guys and that was as much respected as like the Eric Claptons, you know, and the Lindsey Buckinghams and the Mick Fleetwoods. She was one of them. And Christine and I, we made a pact at the very beginning that if we were ever in a room of super famous guitar players that didn't treat us with the respect that we thought that we deserved, that we would just stand up and say, this party's over, and we would walk out. We never actually did have to do that.
Warner Brothers, on behalf of Fleetwood Mac, myself, Stevie, who are also in the band, a very happy 21st birthday to you all, and with our love and thanks, we wish you many, many more years of success. Thank you.
Fleetwood Mac only turned 3 months. The beginning to end. That's 5 wild Indians in one room, all going, I'm the producer, you know, or listen, I know I'm right. And I didn't even ever say that, so we're talking only 4. And Lindsay is, once again, radically perfectionistic, and it's like he's going, well, I don't want to be honest with you. It's not right. And Lindsay and Stephen and Chris had to learn to sing together, because Christine's just a very, very English, you know. And like, I'm kind of like wherever I am. If I'm in Atlanta, I have a Southern accent. And if I'm, you know, in England, then I'm more, it's like, and Lindsay's very like kind of country rock and roll. Just to listen to just Lindsay play and sing. So to put these 3 voices together, especially 2 of which have been singing for years, is hard. But the one great thing about the English is that they are jovial enough to make a joke out of a lot of things. And this was the only way I think that the 3 of us learned to sing together. Because it was like, Lindsay and I already practiced for years, you know, and then there was another lady, she had been able to sing with us too, you know, and that was the hardest part. But the record was done in 3 months, what can I say? We didn't have all the money in the world to spend. We couldn't be indulgent, and nobody knew if it was going to be a hit or not. And for Lindsay and I, we were rich, because we were getting like, you know, hundreds of dollar bills a week, and we were starving.
And I knew in the crystal knowledge of you drove me through the mountains, through the crystal like clear water fountain.
John McVie wanted to put that on the Fleetwood Mac album. The first time he heard it, he said, I want this on the album. And I didn't really, because it took the place of a new song. Since I write so much, I don't need to keep putting old songs that take places of new songs, which means those new songs are backlogged for the next and for the next and for the next. But he was insistent, so I said, all right. Christine did a whole beautiful thing that I loved with that little piano thing all through the end of it. We listened to just that part for days, you know, picking out the exact parts that we wanted in it, and it was like mesmerizing. When I think of Crystal, I think of those days with Fleetwood Mac.
Well, your life, you've never seen a woman taken by the wind. Will you stay if she promised you heaven? Will you ever win?
I didn't want them to release Rhiannon as a single, because I thought, what if she doesn't make it? What if my Rhiannon falls flat on her face? Then it is not my choice to release her as a single. She is a mythological goddess of horses and steeds and maker of birds, and she's a brilliant, brilliant character. what if she falls flat on her face? Then this is really going to hurt me, and it's going to hurt her. And so I was very against releasing Rhiannon as a single. They did a big write-up on it in Billboard and said, can Top 40 take Rhiannon? And I was very against it because I said, this is not a commercial single. I didn't write Rhiannon for commerciality. I wrote Rhiannon because I loved her name and I loved her story. I didn't write her to be sold. She simply is not for sale, and it has never been. And it was a big success, and I was wrong. But at the same time, I could have been right. And if I had been right and Rhiannon had not made it, then I would have never forgiven myself for letting the industry put Rhiannon through that. Because to me, she's real.
When I read the book Rhiannon, I remembered that novel as perceiving Rhiannon as a witch. But then, of course, I find out 5 years later that she wasn't a witch at all, but she was a goddess, and she could whittle birds, and she could turn into a white horse, and she had these birds that sung her song, and she was a total mythological Welsh queen. So she wasn't a witch, and so I was totally misleading everybody. But there was a time when it sort of freaked me out, because I wear black. And why? Because we look thin in black. And everybody's like, she wears black, and she has these black wingy things that she wears, and so she must be a witch. And I stopped wearing black for about 2 years. I had all my clothes made into, like, you know, apricot and pale blue and seafoam green and horrible colors, because I was freaked out that somebody'd come and kidnap me because I was a witch. So this was crazy. You know, I like to think that I'm Glenda or something, but I'm not like a black magic witch.
People can interpret what I do any way they want to, just the way they can interpret a song any way they want to. I happen to like black. I always liked black. I happen to like very flowy clothes, but I always liked those kind of clothes. I'm small. I'm not, you know, your stately, sexy type of a person. I'm 5'1" tall, and, you know, if I don't wear the kind of stuff I wear on stage, from a distance, you'd never see me.
Yeah.
I'd blend into the drums, you know. I mean, I wouldn't even come tall enough to be very noticed. If I just wore jeans and a shirt or something, you would never see me.
And I know sometimes we look like, you know, these all Chinese dads come on in, and I look like I'm going to a Halloween party, and Christine looks like she's going to be confirmed in the Catholic Church, and Mick's going to a Renaissance fair, and John's going to the beach, you know.
3.5 years of playing with Fritz allowed me to walk out on stage with Fleetwood Mac. Fritz, we opened for Janis Joplin, we opened for Jimi Hendrix, we opened for Chicago, we opened for Creedence Clearwater, we opened for every, I mean, my mind's a blank, I can't even tell you. We played Winterland, we played Fillmore, we played Avalon, we played every single big place, Santa Clara Fairgrounds, Monterey, Carmel, up and down the peninsula. So I had been doing this for 3.5 years. I had been standing there in the middle of the stage singing lead for 3.5 years, and that's what made it possible for me to take that stance in Fleetwood Mac. Otherwise, I would have just walked out there, had a heart attack, and died because I couldn't have handled it. I would have been too nervous. As it was, I was sickeningly nervous. But I pulled it off because I had learned through that 3.5 years that nervousness for me seemed to be a part of what I did. That if I wasn't nervous, I didn't do a good performance. I still get horrifyingly nervous. And I hate it because I know the second I walk out on stage, it's going to be gone. It's totally psychosomatic. But I'm sick. I feel sick. And the second that they say, okay, go, and the second I see the audience, my stomach and everything just calms down, and I'm fine. I'm in my own element, you know. It's like my mom says, you have a look on your face that you never, ever have, ever, except for right before you walk on stage.
They've always your look fine. Friday, I got traveling on my mind. Girls love me, and they say it's wrong. You know I can't go on believing for long.
We went everywhere. We went to Grand Junction, Colorado, and to Casper, Wyoming. We went to places where nobody went. So we really did take our music out. And I think that as much as the record, we went out and played it for people. It was an amazing, amazing life adjustment for me to literally be doing 3 to 4 shows a week and then having a day to travel, and like that, the first class ticket, you know, where you travel once and then you work solid. And so the only time you really got to even sit down and rest was when you were on the airplane. And we worked for like 4 months, solid, 4 nights a week, and like 1 day off. and then 3 gigs, and one day off and 4 gigs. That's when my voice got hurt.
Oh, she's getting ready to do Charleston shimmy.
Stevie, and I want your face to come over John's shoulder.
Put your head on
my shoulder.
We were so busy, honestly. Nobody read Billboard. Nobody called home to find out, you know, when you're really touring, you're really wrapped up in your music and what you're doing every night. And I was, you know, Rhiannon is a certain way on the record. Well, Rhiannon turned into a whole nother thing on stage. But I had to work that out in my head every night. When I went to bed, I'd lay in bed and go, what do I want to do in this song? And I'd really spend an awful lot of hours thinking about not how good we were doing, but about what I wanted to do in my place and 3 people, Lindsay, Christine, and Stevie. And what was I going to do right here in the middle of these 2, you know? How was I going to be?
Just let it rip and scream away, and we weren't wearing ear monitors then. You know, we had 2 big, huge speakers in front of us that we were just blasting back in our face. And it's lucky that we all didn't get like nodules and have to have surgery, and luckily we didn't. We managed to get through. But you know, I go back and I listen to some live performances of Fleetwood Mac in the 70s, and I'm like, oh my God, I wish somebody had told me to get a vocal coach, because all you really have to do is do a couple of lessons with them and they'll make you a tape. And then if you never want to see them again, you don't have to. You just do your tape every day, 3 hours before you go on. And then you have no problems. You're able to go on stage and just be fantastic because you're not worrying about your voice. I reflect on it by remembering the beginning of it, which was fantastic because we kind of moved up to San Francisco to Sausalito. It's kind of very Sydney-esque. It's a very fantastic place. And you look back at the city of San Francisco, and there's a very famous recording studio called the Record Plant up there. And they had the Record Plant house where everybody was supposed to live, and Christine and I lasted 2 days in the Record Plant house and then moved 2 little apartments down the street. So we spent 3 months there, and we recorded our 12 songs. And even though when we left, we went back to LA and spent another, you know, close to a year just overdubbing, it all really came back to pretty much what we did at Sausalito. And we would go every day and go sit outside and look at the ocean and have cappuccinos and Irish coffees and talk. And then we'd go to the studio at about 3 in the afternoon and we'd work until 2 or 3 in the morning. Lindsay and I had a very bad fight, and I said, we're done. I think that this is over. All the king's horses and all the king's men can put this back together again. I think that we've gone just about as far as we can go. And we both know now that no matter what it takes, we're going to keep Fleetwood Mac together. And our breaking up is not going to break up this band. And I'm not going to quit, and neither are you. And we were done. And after that, I started going out with Don Henley. That's why I say don't go out with rock stars. It never ends well.
Go your own way is a nice way to say a really worse thing, you know. And, you know, shacking up is all you want to do, which was not true. And I had to listen to him sing that on stage every night. And he'd look at me when he'd say it. And I would just be going, you know, don't look at me when you say that. The tender love song that you wrote for me, you know, it's how mean.
That was Lindsay's angry song to me. And you see, whereas I would write Dreams, which would say, when the rain washes you clean, you'll know. That's my romantic way of leaving the relationship. And Lindsay's very unromantic way of leaving the relationship was to write a song where he was not very nice to me in the song.
Now there you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? It's only right that you should play the way you feel it. Listen carefully to the sound of your loneliness.
I wrote Dreams in Sly Stone's studio, at the back of that studio, one day when I didn't have anything to do, and I just took one of Christine's Fender Rhodes and went back, and the owner of the studio said, I have a studio that you can go into if you want. So I thought I'd seen everything there. I'd been there for 2 months. And he said, it's Sly Stone's studio, so you want to go in there? And I'm like, sure. So I went in there with my piano and I wrote Dreams. And the next day I played the cassette of it for the band, and we recorded it the next day.
man in my life. So, but I didn't want I Don't Want to Know on the record. I wanted Silver Springs on the record. Lindsay wanted I Don't Want to Know on the record and recorded it without telling me. And I went in and it was recorded, and Silver Springs was off. It was the flip side of Go Your Own Way. And it went off because it was too long. The version that everybody heard was like 4 minutes and something seconds, but it was really 7 minutes. And it was an incredible 7 minutes. It was too long. I Don't Want to Know was a lot shorter, but the choice to take Silver Springs off and put I Don't Want to Know on will go down as the biggest question in history on whether that was the right thing to do or not.
You could be my silver spring, blue-green colors flashing. I would be your only dream. You shining ocean crashing.
My mom won't take anything from me. The only thing that she will take from me is a gift of song. And so that's why I gave her this song, is because I wanted to give her some money. I wanted to give her some money to do some things that she wanted to do for a long time. So I said, well, I'm not going to sing I Don't Want to Know. I am 1/5 of this band. And they said, well, if you don't like it, you can either A, take a hike, or B, you better go out there and sing I Don't Want to Know, or you're only going to have 2 songs on the record. And so basically, with a gun to my head, I went out and sang I Don't Want to Know. And they put Silver Springs on the back of Go Your Own Way. So I was real angry. I learned to live with it for a long time.
Did you say that she loved you? Baby, I don't want to know.
There was such fighting going on that you really didn't know if the band would still be together next week. My antics, the stuff that I did, the dancing and the chiffon and the clothes and all that stuff, they hated that. It was like, oh God, she's got another outfit. She's in gray today. You know, it just would piss them off so badly. There was 5 people that were so individual. It was a very cold situation. But mind you, Christine and John were also breaking up, and they were married. And Mick was kind of on the rocks with his wife, too, but Mick had 2 little girls. So he actually had children, which even made it worse. So everybody in the band was breaking up. So it was almost kind of like, well, it totally sucks, but I'm not quitting. And, Lindsay's like, I'm not quitting, and Mick and John and Christine are, I'm not quitting. So we just kind of rose above it. We did not take our arguments into the studio. We really were very, very focused. If we argued, it was outside the studio. We took all that bad energy and that angry energy that we had, and we really focused it on the music. And when we were in the studio, even if we were angry at each other, we were also very aware that this anger was really good for the songwriting process. So it was like we had all this, amazing stuff to write about. And we were aware that we were being able to create this amazing record. We weren't stupid. We would sit there and we'd play back one of the songs and we'd go like, I'd want to be in that band. So it was like we were very aware how good it was. And we were very aware that it was a moment in time. So we didn't mess with it. We really didn't. We were very, very careful. Sequencing has always been important to me since I realized how important it is. I sequenced rumors. Nobody really remembers that, but I did. That's what I said to Lindsay. I did. I know you don't remember this, but I did. What I try to do is make the beginnings and the ends. You go into something, it's good, then the way it comes out and goes into the next song might mean the difference between whether or not they listen to that next song or not. They might not even love the next song, but if the beginnings and the ends are good, they might put up with it, at least to give it a chance.
We didn't know when we do rumors that it was, I mean, we all loved it, but we didn't know that it was going to be that big of a record. We, again, went right on the road. You know, when you're out there touring, you don't get a subscription to Billboard or Cashbox or Record World.
Right.
And nobody's really calling you up and telling you, you know. So it's an elitist thing. The band goes on the road, and it's like you live in your world of touring. You know, we toured for a year, a solid year. And Fleetwood Mac tours for like 8 weeks. Then they take 3.5 weeks off. They tour 8 more weeks. They went to Japan for a month, and then we come to, thank the Lord, Australia for a month. This is solid. This is no break. And everybody else tours for 3 weeks, and they take 4 weeks off. And it's like, I don't understand this, you know, because I'm from a serious touring band. So we were so busy that we didn't really know or really care what the record was doing, because, you know, you walk up those stairs every night and there's 20,000 people or 30,000 people or 50,000 people or 75,000 people or 10 people that are there to see you. Forget it. Everything else doesn't matter, and this is where we will most want to be. So no, we're not very aware of what's happening as far as charts go. If you even mention the word single to Lindsay, he'll get angry with you. You know, it's like, don't tell me what a single is, because I don't write singles. And of course, so that rubs off on me from 20 years ago, and also to everybody. It's like, don't tell us to write singles, ever. Don't tell Fleetwood Mac to be commercial. For 13 months, we went to the studio every single day at 2 o'clock, and you know that I'm late. And, well, you are not late for a Fleetwood Mac session. They come and get you and kill you. You know, it's like, you don't ever do this again. And so from 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it was a horrifying time of day to even be up until 8 or 9 the next morning. And then it's like, let's play. Then it's like, let's jam, let's play blues, you know? And you can't leave because you're a part of this band. And Tusk was like very native, very African. Mick lived in like the jungle in Africa for 5-6 years of his life, right? And so Mick thinks that he's like a Watusi warrior, and he is. And so this whole record, I mean, I would sit and write for days, you know. It's like everything on Tusk was very warrior-esque, which was probably one of the reasons why 13 months didn't kill us all. Because it's like we kind of went to another kind of world for Tusk. And I think that Tusk is one of those records that someday people will sit down and listen to and understand what it really was, because I didn't even understand what it was.
Gig, like an opening night at the Forum or something, you know, to have them squawk across the stage, come out of the back.
No, but then it should be here. This is the cannibals coming out of the dark jungle. You know that movie? In the airplane, the cannibals come to get them. They leave the two open.
Yeah, right.
Filling up with funny tears. I wish you could have been there for the 13 months of Tusk. And when we moved out of the studio, it looked like that we lived it for 100. There had to be 350,000 Polaroids, plus stuffed animals hanging upside down, you know, and rabbits, and everything that we all owned. Yarn and crocheting stuff and paints. And Christine's really an art teacher, right? So, we have like all our art supplies, and we have a digital person I've never understood the whole 13 months why he was there. I called him Mr. Dig. He lived outside the door.
I wanted to write a rock and roll song, and so it started out being much sillier than it came out. It didn't end up being silly at all. It ended up being very serious, actually. But when I started it, I thought this is good for me, since I write so many like intense, serious, dark songs, that I wanted to write something that was up.
And it starts out that way, and it is up, but there's a definite eeriness that goes through that song, too, that I didn't even realize was there until just the other night when you were filming that.
Catch me, yeah.
Stevie, that was great. I told you to take one.
You never know when you tour, when you do a big tour to promote an album. There's no way that you can ever really know whether or not that will be the last tour or not. So you have to always gather this special tour, which will be these new songs, these 18 new songs from everyone. You have to gather this very closely now because it might not ever happen again. And if it doesn't, then this must be the best that we can make.
You're the poet in my heart, never change, darling, never stop.
I wrote Sarah on the piano by myself, and the original Sarah was 16 minutes long. It had like about 9 more verses than what you hear on the record. And it got edited down to 14 minutes, and then down to 11 minutes, down to 9 minutes, down to 7 minutes, down to 4 minutes, 40 seconds. And I was to the point where it was like, well, is the word Sarah even going to be left in my song, you know? I knew that Sarah would be very popular because I loved writing that song. I had more fun writing that. I mean, I remember the night I wrote it, I sat up with a very good friend of mine whose name is Sarah, who was married to Mick Fleetwood, Sarah Fleetwood. And she likes to think it's completely about her, but it's really not completely about her. It's about me, and it's about her, and it's about Mick, and it's about Fleetwood Mac. It's about all of us at that point. There's little bits about each one of us in that song. And when it had all the other verses, it really covered a vast bunch of people, you know. I knew that Sarah was the kind of song you could fall in love with because I fell in love with it. It's one of those songs that I don't know where it came from, and I still walk to the piano and I'll sit down where I wrote it and I'll just be playing Sarah, and it's like it was never recorded. You know, it's like it's still brand new to me. I do love it so much, and I do enjoy singing it so much.
This woman called me, and she told me her story, and I told her mine. If she had just left it at that, I probably would have said, which I did say, maybe the same star hit us both at the same time. Maybe the same words came through to you and me at the same time, very similar. That's all right, I accept that. And I'd probably have given her half of that song. But what she did was she talked to me, and she was real nice. And I was real vulnerable and real naive. And I really told her exactly the truth. And she sued me, and she had me subpoenaed. And that made me angry. I did a deposition, Gordon did a deposition, and Sarah did a deposition. Plus Warner Brothers and a million other people did depositions. And her lawyers were just absolutely, they were blown away. They knew that we weren't lying. They knew it was my song. And so I won, but it cost a lot of money. And so I'm very angry because I would have far rather given that money to cancer or to the Heart Association or something. I have to do something else besides just rock and roll. Rock and roll is wonderful, and I love it, but it's not everything, and it's important for me to do other things. It always has been, though. I can't live on just one. I'm a Gemini. Ballet is so physically difficult that it takes, if you have any problems or if you're worried about anything, and you come down and do this for 15, 20 minutes even, you know, if you don't even get to class, you can't think about anything else but this.
I paint, I draw, I crochet, I decorate. I do lots of things that I do when people are asleep. I do things that people get angry with me because I should be sleeping. And they get mad because I'm not getting my rest. But if I didn't do them when everybody was asleep, I couldn't do them. And so when I come out with like a really beautiful drawing and I give it to somebody, or print, I don't give any of my original art out, but I have it printed. And if I give somebody a print, then they may have been like absolutely furious at me last week because I snuck away and stayed up all night instead of going to sleep. And then I give them this print. It's all framed and it's really beautiful, and I only draw angels, and so they're all really pretty. And they're like knocked out. And then they're not mad at me anymore, and I'm going, now see? Now you're not angry, are you? Because now you have something that's very beautiful, and I did it when I was supposed to be sleeping, and you were very angry with me. And now you're not angry with me anymore, are you? No, I'm not. It's the only way you can do other stuff without anybody knowing it is lock yourself in your bedroom and turn all the lights down and get a flashlight. And at my age, I have to sneak around like this, and I do.
I started to draw when my best friend got leukemia, and that's what she's left me. And so I know she's really excited now because it has finally, after the last 9 years, come to fruition. And people have finally started appreciating it. But I never drew a thing before she got sick. I drew Rhiannon for her to stay at the end of her bed so she could see something when I wasn't there, so that there was something for her to stare at. So now I know that Robin is up there and I'm down here, and we're both laughing about it because now it's finally come into its own.
Gypsy was written.
Gypsy was written when my best friend died of leukemia. And about the fact that she wasn't going to see the rest of this. I still see her bright eyes. It was like she wasn't going to make it. And so I was the lone gypsy. This was my best friend from when I was 15. And so I was a solo gypsy all of a sudden. And it was very sad for me. And that's sometimes when I write my very best songs.
Well, I write 3 songs in 3 months, or 3 songs sometimes in 3 weeks, or sometimes 3 songs in 2 days. And so I'm down to 3 songs of my life experience for 3 years, basically. So yeah, that's difficult. And Miss Christine calls me the mad songwriter. At some point, if you're a really prolific songwriter and you want to be able to walk to that piano and not feel stupid about writing another song, or have somebody walk by and say, oh great, you're writing another song, I don't want to feel that. And that's why I wanted to do a solo career, because I need to write even if nobody ever hears it.
And the days go by like a strand in the wind, in the web that is my own. I begin again. I said to my friend, nothing else matters.
Just like the wide-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Just like the wide-winged dove sings a song, sounds like she's singing. Ooh, baby, ooh, say ooh. And the days go by like a strand in the wind, in the web that is my own. I begin again.
I love to write. My first love. I love to sit down with a glass of wine at the piano and a little incense and a candle and just write. It's a very satisfying thing for me to do, and it also, I guess, I get to say all the things that I'd like to say and don't verbally. So I write them down and then I put them to music, and it's a lot of fun. But it's also for my own soul, you know, it does me a lot of good. You can be a lot more philosophic when you write words into a song than you can when you're really talking to someone. So I say a lot of things that I want to say to people through my songs that I can't say to them from me. And also, a song reaches a lot of people. For me, it's like, it's the most wonderful way to... My parents wanted me to be a second-grade teacher, so I get to do a little bit of teaching, get a little bit of feedback back from the kids who listen, and they do listen, and that means all the world to me, so it's a wonderful thing.
Well, I never thought I'd make it here in Hollywood. I never thought I'd ever want to stay. What I seem to touch these days has turned to gold. What I seem to want, well, you know I find a way.
I try very hard not to become jaded, because it's like I said to my father when he said, Stevie, you're going to have to start realizing that you're going to have to take a little better care of your financial affairs and watch a little more careful, because you're 32 years old now. You're not a baby anymore, and you're not a little girl anymore. You're grown up. And I said, Dad, do you want me to give up that childishness so that I can watch out a little more careful? Because in giving up that, I will give up Rhiannon, and I will give up dreams. And I will start writing harder songs, colder songs, because I will be more aware of the world that I don't want to know about or write about. Is that worth it? And he couldn't look at me and say, yes, it was worth it. I would rather just buy a house up in the Colorado mountains or something and just write songs and send them down the mountain and let somebody else do them. If it gets to turning me into a jaded, old, hardcore rock and roll star, that's not what I want to be. I can't be that. That would be letting my soul down completely.
Still the same old story. What price glory? You make it easy in the still of the night. In the still of the night, how still my love.
I'll never feel like I call my own shots, because either I was with Lindsay, it was Buckingham Nicks, or I'm with Fleetwood Mac. By myself is scarier, and I don't really like calling the shots alone. I'd rather have some other people to call shots with me, in case you call the wrong shot. But it's not just you that is the big failure, you know. That's the scary thing about being alone. It can't be all down to me. I don't know enough to call all the shots in my life. I just don't. And also, the great amount of my time is spent at the piano, or with my tapes, or at my typewriter. And every minute that I go away and try to learn how to call shots is 1 minute less that I get to stay at my piano.
I need you to love me. I need you today. Give to me your leather. Take from me my lace.
Lori Nix and Sharon Ceylani, you know, they've been singing with me since 1979 when I first asked them if they were interested in being on a record if I ever made one. And they were both like, yeah, of course. My relationship with the girls is simple. I could have had different background singers on every record I've ever done. I could have been a chameleon like Madonna. I could have hired anybody. But I didn't want to change. I think that my audience and my fans find comfort in the fact that Lori, Sharon, and I are very loyal to each other. Every day it's a new day. It's something that's really, really fun for us, and we work hard at it. The world hears that friendship. They find comfort in that love that we have as three very strong women.
You in the moonlight with your sleepy eyes. Could you ever love someone like me?
John always treated me very special. He always kind of treated me like we were married in a strange sort of way. I think he found in me something that he has not probably found since. It was 1976. This was right after the beginning of when Fleetwood Mac really made it, and the Eagles had been big for a long time. So he found a very different kind of girl in me than in most of the women that he was used to hanging out with. And we had a very special relationship because of that.
You come knocking on my front door. Same old line you used to use before. I said, hey, well, what am I supposed to do? I didn't know what I was getting into.
When I first
first met Tom, Jimmy Iovine said something to me because I said, well, you know, I really love to sing with Tom. And he said, there's never been a woman on a Heartbreaker album. And I went, And I talked to Tom's wife, Jane, who is a real good friend of mine, and I said, and then Jane said, before I ever said anything, Jane said, hey, we worked this out. She said, I'll talk to Tom, you know, you talk to Jimmy. And Jane and I really had it figured out long before Tom had any idea that we were scheming. We really did do a little bit of scheming because I knew it would be good and I knew it would be fun and I knew Tom would enjoy it. And it's not like I'm not joining their band or anything. I'm not a part of the Heartbreakers. I'm not anything to them except a friend. But every once in a while we can do something like sing Inside Her and Stop Dragging My Heart Around and give everybody a little extra moment of real truth, magic. Because it kills me. And I figure if it knocks me out that much, it has got to have an effect on them.
This album took us approximately 12 days. And because we waited around for all these musicians for 1 year, because all these tracks are basically live. The first album we completely videoed, but we videoed Beauty and the Beast. It's a live tape. The voice and the orchestra and Roy Bittan and Paul Buckmaster is live. The girls went in right after we finished 3 hours later and put their beautiful harmonies on it, and we were done. It's a really kind of an abstract song because I decided to call this record The Wild Heart before Belladonna came out. Wild Heart, the where is the reason, don't blame it on me. That was written in New York at the same time that Enchanted was written, right at the time when Belladonna came out. The verses, the something in my heart died last night, one more chip in an already broken heart. I think the heart died, broke long ago. That's when I needed you. The second verse, I run around like a spirit in flight. Fearlessness is fearlessness. I will not forget this night, dare my wild heart. That was written a good year later. Probably what I'm saying, one more chip in an already broken heart, that's when I needed you, is probably saying that some of the love that I probably searched for always was what I needed a long time ago. Probably when Lindsay and I were in love. You know, that's when I needed to know it was alright. That's when nobody told me. And so that's, I think, what the one more chip in an already, because that came out very quickly. I mean, I went to my piano at noon with a glass of wine, and I was really unhappy, and said, set that down, turn on my tape, and I sat down, I started playing this thing. Something in my heart died last night. It's one more chip off an already broken heart. Da 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 da.
Something in my heart died last night. More chip off an already broken heart. I think the heart broke long ago. That's when I needed you. That's when I needed you most.
So wild in the darkest places of your mind. I mean, the things that you think about in the wildest places of your mind that you don't ever tell anybody about. Only the children might hopelessly enchanted. That's the way we are. Hopelessly enchanted. Wild in the darkest places of your mind. Don't blame it on me. Blame it on my wild heart. Yeah. That's those places that many people don't even have. But you see, my audience has it. These songs were done in one night, basically. I stand back one time we played it. That's it. That's what you hear on the radio once. Me and Sandy and the drum machine. Period.
In the beginning of the 1980s, I got married. And my husband Kim and I were driving from Los Angeles to Santa Barbara for our honeymoon. And we heard this incredible Prince song called Little Red Corvette. And we were like so knocked out at this song, so we were like all the way, so we pulled over and we got it. And I just kind of hummed this song along to it. It's very, very different. You'll try it. You'll all go home and try this, but you'll have to find where it fits in. But it was perfectly in there. And we got to the hotel or wherever we went, and we recorded it. And like it was a song, it was done. And also to add that when I went in to record it, we were in the middle of recording it, and I thought, well, you know what? I could just call Prince and tell him this. And somebody got me his number, and that's not an easy thing to do. And we contacted him. I was at Sunset Sound in Los Angeles. We contacted him, and he called me back. He called me right back, and I kind of told him the story. I said I kind of hummed along this song, and I'm at Sunset Sound, and how do you feel about that? And 20 minutes later, he roared into the parking lot and came in, listened to the song, you know, very cool, very quiet. And he said, okay. I said, do you hate it? And he said, no, it's okay, it's cool. And they set up an OB8 for him, and he played the 16th note thing. And then he did it like one time, and then he went to the middle part where he goes, dee-da, 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 dee-da. He did that. He finished it. He said goodbye, and he kind of walked out of my life. So that's my Prince story, and it's also my story of Stand Back.
It's very easy to sail through these records without really noticing too much, because you're going so fast, nobody's calling you up and telling you anything. You just kind of do your gigs, and what becomes really important is that live performance, you know. But when we came to Australia, there was nothing but videos on TV, and that was before MTV. So I'm making the videos too now, which is something I don't like to do. I should tell you about the first Stand Back, which I did my own horseback riding, and it was like, you know, incredible to a point, but it wasn't right. And I freaked out, and I said, Mac didn't have to make videos to sell records. So at this point I said, take it back. And I redid Stand Back with Jeffrey Hornaby, who choreographed Flashdance. Now you have to know that this sent me into waves of panic, because I am not a dancer, and I am certainly not like, what's her name, in Flashdance, right? So I am afraid. And I make this video, right? And I have my kind of gang of dancers who are all going like this, and it's wonderful. And I meet this guy named Brad, who choreographs all my videos to this day, and who puts up with a lot from me because he knows that I'm sweet and he doesn't want to hurt my feelings, you know? It's difficult. I am not a model. I'm not an actress. I don't care about being pretty that much. What I want to do is I want to sing to you. What can I tell you about Rock a Little? It wasn't right. It was right, but there was something, you know, like you had the wrong pair of shoes or something. It was wrong. And I knew it wasn't right, and I didn't know why. So I just sort of kind of wandered through this year and a half of trying to understand why I didn't feel that it was right. But it is right now. Rock a little, if you don't know what that means, it means that we kind of rock a little all our life. I did. I rocked in my cradle, for sure. Then in midlife, you sort of rock on your feet, and then you move onwards to a rocking chair at some point, probably. So that's kind of what rock a little means. It means to rock and roll all your life. And this album being the meaning of it being to rock and roll all your life, to have that kind of attitude and to kind of stay forever young in your own way. It's a very important statement for me, and I really had to make sure that it was right for the people that like my music, because they would know that it wasn't right. Sometimes it rages, rock a little. Even when it's cold, rock a little. Hit it. It's about time, Lily. The song, amazingly enough, of course, in all the lots of songs that we've recorded, is a song that I'm kind of sharing with my father, because it came from my dad and from my friend Rebecca saying to me, you know, we don't care how you feel, you have to go up there and do a show now. People in my other everyday funny life call me Lily. So my dad would say, go ahead, Lily, hit it, rock a little, hit the stage, get up. If you don't feel good, go home. And Rebecca would say the same thing. So this whole thing kind of came about as a statement to, it doesn't really matter what your problems are, Stevie, or what is going through your life right now.
now what really matters is that you have to get up and go out there on stage, and that's what you live for. Go ahead and do that now. There's this one part that's about my dad. It says he knows his daughter. They say, where does she live? He says, oh, up there somewhere. And then he says, go ahead, Lily, hit it, hit the stage. And that's kind of what my life is. So I had to make really a lot of changes and stops and understand what was going on in my life that was other people influencing me and talking to me and making me feel certain ways that maybe I let my own self go a little bit and not really rely on my own intuitions, which are always the best ones for me. And I'm always right. So to not believe in myself, I think, was the thing that I did that was the wrong thing. I didn't believe in myself for a few days, few minutes, few lifetimes went by. And now I know that it really was all okay.
You can talk to me. Talk to me. You can talk to me. You can set your secrets free, baby.
Every time I write a song or every time I record one, I think about the video to it, because whatever is your single is your video. Sometimes I don't think that's really the best way, but it is for now, I guess. My songwriting influences were more Jackson Browne, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Joni Mitchell, and because of what I learned from them, their phrasing, the way they wrote poetry, the way they put their poetry to music. I say studied, and I guess that really is what I did. I studied, but I laid on the floor and listened and read their music and read their words and just loved it. I never looked at it as studying. I just looked at it as these are my very favorite writers and my very favorite phrasers, because learning to phrase when you're a poet is hard. And Joni taught me that you can fit thousands of words in every sentence if you sing it right. That was great to know, because when you're a poet, you don't really want to shorten up your sentences. So she taught me that.
I would also say the Beatles, except for the fact that when I met Lindsay, he was so insistent that I listened to the Beatles for form. For like, here's your verse, here's your one bar, and I'm going, this is a bar down the corner, right? I mean, 2 bars, and then there's another verse, and then you have to have a chorus, and now you have to have a bridge, and I'm going over troubled water, and I don't understand this, So I got a little upset with people that I was forced to listen to. I was not forced to listen to the Everly Brothers, and I was not forced to listen to R&B or the Supremes or the Beach Boys, the Four Tops, also the Kingston Trio. So somewhere between the Beatles and the Kingston Trio, I kind of burned out a little bit and said, in my own self, quietly, I'm going to go and find what I want to sing and listen to, even though I'll sing what you want me to do and you want me to do and you want me to do when I'm with you. But in my own private time, I'm going to sing to Diana Ross and I'm going to sing to Aretha Franklin. And that's just the way it is. See, this was one of my bad planning moves. I moved everybody I knew to Dallas to record in the church, Dallas church, with really very little preparation. I had prepared. I mean, I wrote the song, I had the songs written, but all the rock and roll stars arrived unprepared. Jimmy Iovine, I put him in a very weird position. He had to kind of go in there and say, well, I haven't really got songs either, but we're going to play. And so we were there for about a month, and we ended up coming out with about 6 tracks. And that was only in a week, because the rock and roll stars arrived and left in a week. And so, we'll actually even probably more than 6. And the people have been really good, and all the energy that's gone into it, which is a lot of different, Jimmy Iovine's energy, Keith Olsen's energy, Stevie's here and there energy, a lot of different people that played, the girls that sing on the record, all my friends, my backup recording group in Phoenix, that nobody ever knew how to record anything until I moved there.
I can't wait, I can't wait.
All the clothes that I wore, I loved, because I've had the same designer. Her name is Margie Kent, and she still makes my stage clothes. And I loved all my clothes, because all my clothes that she made were couture, beautiful clothes. And I've still got them today. They all lasted. So what changed was my horrible hair, and it would be so permed. And then once it's permed, you're stuck. But it wasn't as much work. I'd let it grow out, it would get straight, and I'd like it, but it was a lot of work, and then I'd perm it. So that's kind of what happened. The hair went from perm to growing out perm to really bad growing out perm to almost straight to good straight to to long straight, to beautiful straight, to a lot of work straight, back to the crown.
Probably the thing that makes this record more special is that when I actually hired my producer to do this record, the thing that I told him that was most important to me was that my songs came through. I have archives of demos, and I have many, many friends who prefer the demos and who all have them and who listen to them. And that's kind of really hard to take when it costs you nothing to do a demo and it costs you, you know, $500,000 or $1 million to do a record, and people come to you and say, can I have a cassette of the song when it was just a demo? And it's kind of like you want to turn around and bang your head against the wall because you can't believe that what you have done, what you have recorded in this big studio with all these fabulous players and all these incredibly brilliant people, that your real friends, which are not different than the real people out there that are buying your records, are saying, could I have a tape of Gypsy before it was put on record? I mean, I'm not a musician. More than musically, it's very important that what I have to say comes through. And so in this record, he did what I asked. He let me put my demo feeling through. In other words, if I were to sit down and play the piano not very well and sing you one of my songs not that well, but you might start to cry. It might really hit you because you would really understand what I was trying to say. As soon as they put harps and violins and incredible guitar and everything else on it, you lose that. When I started this album, I said I want to be able to do these songs and reproduce them on stage. And I want people to go home not wishing that they could have heard them at the first writing or at the first time that the idea came through me, and really understand what I was trying to say to them at a certain moment in time. There are a few songs on the Fleetwood Mac records that actually did accidentally come out very real. If I were to go away and Lindsay got a hold of my songs, then he would add so much to them that by the time I got back, it was hardly recognizable to me, and I would be very upset, and he would say, well, that's really too bad. You were gone, you forfeit. Much of Alice in Stevie Nicks. Alice is Stevie writing about Alice in parallel back to Stevie. So I'm really writing about Alice's adventures as in comparison to my adventures. And for Alice to run back and forth between the looking glass is what I kind of perceive my whole life to be, is running back and forth between two places, which is obviously my career with Fleetwood Mac and obviously my career by myself. And then, of course, there's the other part of my life, which is my own life, which there isn't very much of, but I always seem to be running to one place or the other.
You're much better off to actually share what really happened with your audience and not try to make up a story. If you have a good story, there's no reason to try to change the story. And I'm very superstitious. Once I've written a line, it's like every once in a while Lindsay will say, you know, well, you're writing in the third person, and then all of a sudden you flip back into first person, and you can't really do that. And I'm like, so would you say that to Bob Dylan? I snap back at him, you know? And that's why Lindsay and I don't write songs together. And he'll say, well, no, I guess I don't know. And so that ends that conversation right there. Rooms on Fire is about me. It's about a girl who is a rock and roll star who has pretty much accepted the fact that she will never be able to be married or have those children that she wanted or that husband that she wanted or that deep, deep love that she wanted. And she's accepted it. And then one night at one of those everlasting parties that we all have to go to that we don't really want to go to, we go and make an appearance and leave as quickly as possible. A man comes into the room and there is a certain sort of see, I don't see very well, so I have a sixth sense that there's an eye contact thing that even though I can't see him very well, I feel something. And I close my eyes for a second and he walks over to me and I look up and he's there. And he asked me to dance and we end up getting married and I end up having a little baby girl. We lived together for 25 years. And the sad thing is that I waited for him all my life. and then he dies before me, and I wait for him for the rest of my life. And he comes back after I'm very, very old and gets me and takes me with him back to wherever he comes from. I've had many really wonderful relationships, of which I treasure. And I am really good friends with all these people. And they're still in my life. I see them sometimes, I see them a lot sometimes, you know. It's been a good thing for me. And my life is nuts. I'm gone. I'm not home. So to be in a relationship, it's very hard to be the one left behind. You know that song? I never will marry, I'll be no man's wife. I intend to stay single all the rest of my life. Well, I was singing that when I was like 17 years old. And I'm afraid that may really be what's going to happen. I may be like Katharine Hepburn. I'll just stay single forever.
I just played the part. I didn't win or lose. Maybe next time I'll think about how I'm feeling. 'Cause I'm doing the best that I can.
Well, that's really the story of my life. I think I wrote that song really because sometimes I get tired of people telling me their opinions of what I do. Because I want to say to them, you have no idea what I live with. You have no idea what my life is like. You have no idea the responsibility that I feel to people, or the guilt that I carry around with me, or how much I want to please everybody, and how hard I try to please everybody and make everybody happy. It's very difficult. I mean, it's aging. And doing the best I can sort of says, get off my back, basically. I'm doing the best that I can. And I have been doing the best I can for as long as I can remember. So either give me a break or leave me alone. And it's very serious songs. I mean, it's sad. I mean, in my distress, I wanted someone to blame me. And in my own way, disaster was the only thing I could depend on. That's pretty down in the very depths of despair, which is where I pretty much was when I wrote the song, which meant I cannot take all of this advice and go on living with all of you. You've got to let me grow up and leave me to my own decisions.
I made a choice years ago not to ever be married and not to have children, because it would get in the way of being a true artist and following my true calling, which is being the artist that I am now. But the fact is that I did get married in 1981 for 3 months, and then I got unmarried. My friend Robin died of leukemia, and she was 6.5 months pregnant with a baby when she died, which is very uncommon for a leukemic mother to happen at all. So when she died, they had to take the baby, and there was her husband and her baby, and I was flipped out. So I married him. That's how I can be. We realized within about 2 months that this was a very, very bad idea. It was grief. And it was almost like there was this baby, and Robin was my best friend, and it was his wife, and it was almost like, you know, what in the world have we done? So at one day I said, you need to take Matthew and go to Minnesota and raise him there. Robin would not want us to be here doing this. It would have been fine if we had worked. She would have been fine with it if this had worked, but it's not working. So you need to take him and go home to your family and get over this, and I need to get over it. And now he's grown, and we're friends. My husband's name was Kim, and so Kim and I are really close now, and we talk on the phone, and he's back east, you know. And it's good now because Matthew does have me. Even though I'm not really his mom, I'm like his crazy aunt. As I was going through the 70s, cocaine was introduced into everybody's life and told that it was recreational and that it was not dangerous. On the other side of that, we were also told, don't ever do heroin, because if you do it once, you'll have to do it every day, because you'll never feel that good again and you'll be chasing that high for the rest of your life. And so I said, well, that's not for me. But cocaine, we were all told, was cool. That's why we all did it. Of course, then we all got extremely addicted to it, because really it's just speed. And it really doesn't do a thing for you. I mean, it just makes you speedy and unpleasant and unattractive. But I didn't know it then. I would have said to you, on a Bible, it's not hurting my voice. It was totally hurting my voice. I mean, the stories have already been everywhere about my nose. You know, I have a huge hole in my nose, which is affecting me now. It affects my voice now. It's like Ajax. It just ate right through my nose. But of course you don't care because you're really addicted. And then I checked myself into Betty Ford. I went to a plastic surgeon in January of 1985 when Rock a Little came out, and I had a big tour planned that was going to go through October. And it was already booked, and you know, when they book that tour, it's booked, tickets were on sale, I was going. You know, I didn't go to an ENT, I went to a plastic surgeon and said, check out my nose and tell me what you think. And he looked at my nose and he said, well, I think that the next time you do a hit of cocaine, you could drop dead, or you could have a brain aneurysm. And I'm like, okay, I can't stop doing coke on the road because I'm so addicted. But what I will do is I will do as little as possible, and I will, the second this tour is over, if I live through it, I will go straight to Betty Ford. And that's what I did. I went straight to Betty Ford 1 week before Halloween, checked myself in with my wild hair and mink coat and silver shoes and huge suitcase, and went in for 30 days, and it was hard, it was tough. But I walked out. I can remember walking through and having somebody say, you look better, and I'm going, you know, like, I'm getting better every day. I would go in my little bathroom, you know, in my little room with my roommate, and I'd look at myself in the mirror and I'd go, it's a good thing I'm here because I'm dying. I just knew I was dying. Then something worse happened to me. Then I went to a psychiatrist because I didn't want to go to Alcoholics Anonymous because I knew I wasn't an alcoholic when I came out of Betty Ford, and my whole world was like, well, you need to like at least go see somebody, you know, to get some therapy or something after you've done this 30 days at Betty Ford. And I'm like, listen, I'm fine. And I was fine. And so I went to the psychiatrist who put me on Klonopin, which is basically Valium, and just kept upping my dose for 8 years, which was worse than the 10 years of coke. Because on the Klonopin, I actually nearly died a couple of times because you're so tranquilized that you could OD on aspirin because you don't remember taking the last 5 that you took. So I lost that 8 years. I didn't write, and I had gained so much weight from the Decadron and from being on a tranquilizer. And the doctors are so willing to give that to you. It's like, hey, let's have some Decadron, you know, you'll be fine. You can sing the concert, no problem. So you have a Decadron shot. Seems an easy fix. And then you go on and you sing okay. So anyway, one day I woke up and said, you know, well, you'll never walk on stage again in a long black dress and look really beautiful in Thunder. I was just sick, you know, I was sick about it. Not to mention I'm not writing songs or going anywhere. So I called up my friend and said, come and get me and take me to a hospital right now. I went to Daniel Freeman and I stayed there for 47 days to detox from Klonopin. It was awful. And I did think I was going to die. And I think the people at Daniel Freeman thought I was going to die a couple of times too. But I worked really hard. In that 8 years, I could have had a baby. I could have had maybe an amazing relationship. Maybe I might have been married. Maybe I could have done another, you know, 2 Fleetwood Mac albums that were really great. Maybe I could have done another 2 or 3 Stevie Nicks albums that were really great. So many things that I could have accomplished during that 8 long years. I accomplished nothing. Devastating. So that's my regret. And if I were to see that psychiatrist on the street, I would run towards him and try to kill him. So the reason I'm talking about it is because just in case anybody out there that's listening to this goes in and sits in a psychiatrist's office and they say, let's do a trial run of Klonopin, that they will get up and run screaming out of there. As a person who came through a high drug culture, I would never tell people you must have an addiction to be able to create. I could have told myself all those years, well, you have to be high to write a song. It's not true. You don't. You have to be inspired to write a song. First person to say, I don't really write good singles. I'm not, you know, singles really are my thing. So thank God for Chris. It's an art, for sure. She can hear it in her head. That's a hit chorus. Video to that, with the horses and riding around in the corral and being up in the barn, the very strange thing about that for both me and Christine was it was the 2-story barn. The end of this barn had no door or a wall. Every once in a while, Lindsay would just walk towards that wall of air, and it was like he was leaving. It was the strangest thing. I think everybody in their own way said, like, what do you mean you can't do it? I mean, it's booked. And you know, when a tour is booked, you are talking about the reputation of all your promoters, the reputation of all the people that back you up, all the people that work for you, and he was just stone-faced. I'm not doing it. In my complete tranquilized euphoria, got up and ran across the room to him screaming. Then he chased me downstairs and out into Chris's driveway, and then Christine chased the both of us downstairs out into her driveway. And she's screaming at us, you know, like, if you're gonna kill each other, please don't do it at my house. I remember that succinctly. She said, if you're gonna kill each other, just don't do it here. Go somewhere else. Go home. Go to your own houses. And so we stopped. And Lindsay just peeled out of that driveway like at 90 miles an hour. That was that.
In the old Fleetwood Mac, one of the old Fleetwood Mac, with Lindsay, it was to the point where Lindsay was really doing everything, and the rest of us weren't really included. Both Dick and Billy's influence is very good, and their energy is very high, and they're very excited, so it's almost like seeing the whole thing through a child's eyes again. It seems like just yesterday that they came into our lives, and yet they've already been in the band almost 3 years. Words to Freedom were written in about half hour. As quick as I could type.
I was told not to go on tour. The people that surround me in the business part felt that the loss of Lindsay was devastating to the band, and that the band could never be what it was before, and that I had this solo career that was, or at least could be, a whole lot more successful if I had a little more time and a little more rest, and for my health, and for my well-being, and for my state of mind, that it would be better for me to just have one career, like most people. And since they didn't manage or take care of Fleetwood Mac, they didn't really care about Fleetwood Mac, and so of course that angered me because I did care about Fleetwood Mac, and I would not let them down. And it wasn't just the band, it was the whole entourage. I couldn't let 40 people down for the next 4.5 months that they had on the books written up to tour. And I don't say this in any way, in an egotistical way, but I am a very honorable person, would never walk away from them unless it was such a big deal that I had no choice.
Timeless are the creatures who are wise, and so very timeless are the prisoners in disguise. Who is the beauty? Who the beast? Would you die of grieving when I leave?
It's very easy to make me feel guilty because I would know that somehow they were waiting for me. And I would go through my tour not really enjoying it as much as I should because I know that there's 4 people at home that are really angry with me. And then when I would get home, instead of getting a couple of weeks off, I would have to go home, unpack, sleep one night, and go to the studio the next day and walk into a room full of people that weren't very happy with me. And it finally got to the point where, why do I
put myself through this kind of like mental stress constantly. I don't enjoy what I do, and I don't enjoy doing anything with them either. So I have to get out. I just have to go.
For rumors, and 14 years on, when Time Space came around, it didn't occur to me that they wouldn't let me have it back. I called up to try to get Mick and got his answering service, and I said to him, Mick, this is very serious. I need you to call me. If you don't call me, it's going to be disastrous. And he didn't call. So I finally tracked down his manager. And I told Dennis what I wanted. I said, I want Silver Springs because it belongs to my mother. And I said, well, you find Mick and you tell him that if I don't have those tapes by Monday, I am no longer a member of Fleetwood Mac. And he said, okay, give me till 10:30. I'll find Mick. Don't do anything yet. And I said, okay. Dennis called back and said that he had finally tracked Mick down and that Mick had said, over my dead body, will I ever give that song back?
Goldust woman, take your Silver Springs, take your praise, oh yeah. Well, it's a heartless challenge. You pick your path and you pray, pray hard, baby, pray harder.
After 15 years of fighting like a dog to keep this band together, which I did. And believe me, a lot of things happened that would have made most people say, excuse me, but this isn't what I want to do anymore, so I'm leaving. I mean, I could have dropped out when Lindsay left. Easy. It would have been easy. Nobody would have questioned it. I could have left then and just gone on with my solo career, but I did not. I chose to juggle two careers, which nearly killed me. Because while they went to Hawaii after we finished touring and doing an album, I went straight into the studio. And then I toured. And then when I finished my album, I went straight into the studio. And they were angry with me because I was late. So I was constantly under the gun of them being very angry with me because I was doing something else instead of just complete Fleetwood Mac. But, I mean, I loved being in the band. That's why I stayed in the band. That's why I would have stayed in the band. I loved being a part of 5 people that were completely faithful unto each other in many, many ways. I love John to death. I adore Christine. Lindsay and I aren't on real good terms, but we never were, so that's not anything new. It was quite a special relationship, those 5 people. To be in that band was like a dream come true.
Buckingham, Mick Fleetwood, Christine McVie, John McVie, and Stevie Nicks. Fleetwood Mac.
If you wake up, don't smile. If it takes just a little while, open your eyes and look at the day. You see things in a different way. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. Don't stop, it'll soon be here. It'll be better than before. Yesterday's gone, yesterday's gone.
You did that because the President of the United States asked us to do that. You know, that's probably the only man in the whole world that could have gotten us to do this. And I did call Lindsay and say, we have to do this in the scheme of our lives. This is important.
I think that Bill Clinton picked that song out like years ago. The story is that he was in, and this could be totally a fairy story, but the story is that he was in a cab about 10 years ago, and that song came on the radio, and he was talking to the cab driver who knew he was he was in politics then, said, well, gee, Bill, if you ever get to be president or something, maybe this should be like your song. He said, I think this would be the greatest song, don't you? And they had this great conversation. And so all the years later, it is said that he picked this song. And I think that we were so honored that anybody, would pick one of our songs to be that important to them. And because
because, I think Bill Clinton's 2 years older than me, or a year older than me. Not much. We're kind of the same age. And there's something about that was very attractive. Instead of the President of the United States being way older than we were, he wasn't way older. He was kind of in the same generation, And so the fact that he had gone back 10 years before when we were all 10 years younger, it was real exciting to us. And, the inauguration was very exciting, and we were treated really wonderful. And being there was like not even like any rock and roll thing I've ever done. It was scary. It was exciting. It was passionate. It was FBI and CIA and everybody, Secret Service there, everywhere. I mean, you couldn't even come out of your little trailer without like people looking at you, It was very intense. And there was like 18,000 people there. So it was really something. The Other Side of the Mirror was a very honest, verbal album for me. I mean, the songs were very honest, and I did definitely touch upon some kind of tragedy and pain and things that are easy to write about if you feel like telling people the truth. And I guess I felt like telling people the truth. And then backing that whole thing with all the high-tech pianos and fairy sounds, I mean, I didn't mean for that to come across as being so solemn, but I guess it kind of did. And this one, really, the songs aren't any happier, but the approach is happier. The great spirits that be obviously kind of just pointed me back towards Buckingham Nicks' Belladonna, I think. Let's go back to more guitar, more acoustic guitar, and more rhythm. And again, you can sit in a living room and play that stuff. You can have Bernie and Andy Fair and Waddy, and we can all sit right here and we can reproduce any of these right now, tonight. Sometimes when you are recording a song, you might really love this song and you think it's one of the best things you've ever done. But as you're doing it, you know that this is not going to transfer to live stage. It's too complicated. There's too much going on. There's too many people playing. There's too much, high-tech stuff. There's too much digital shit going on. And you know that when it comes right down to doing it on stage, everybody's going to go, this is just far beyond what we should do on stage, And it's not going to come off good. It's not going to sound like the record. So when you do write songs and record them and they still sound to you like, well, yeah, we're all standing in this room. We're playing this now here, so we could obviously beam ourselves onto a stage and play this song, because this was a real band that started and continued into the studio and did all the basic tracks.
Love don't mean what it says at all. Destiny says that I'm destined to fall.
It feels wonderful because you know that you may not do it on stage with the album that time, but the next tour is when you start really pulling out songs from this record, because then you can, because people are familiar enough with this stuff that you can replace some other favorites that have to go, but you can't do that this time, so you can only play about 3 new songs. I had the greatest experience of learning that with Rumors. Now, Rumors, right, turned into the most loved album. The Rumors had been out for 7 weeks. We went on the road. Fleetwood Mac, the record was the one that was out before with Over My Head and Rhiannon and okay. And we thought, well, everybody loves this record. This is great. It's selling really good, So we put about 6 or 7 songs in Kansas City. And we almost got booed off the stage. The audience was angry because we didn't do a lot of the songs that they wanted to hear, and they weren't familiar with the Rumors songs at all. They had, all of them just got the record. They came to hear the last record. They came to hear all of that and sort of see the same show they had already seen with a couple of new things, and we completely changed it and went totally with the Rumors thing. Didn't work. We had to go into cancel 2 or 3 gigs and go back into rehearsal in New York somewhere, and completely revamp and go back, put stuff back in, and it was awful.
I've been walking under rainbows too long to tell. You keep walking down mean streets, my street angel.
Street Angel was written at a hotel in Los Angeles, the Peninsula Hotel. I had to leave my house that I lived in because my house was attacked by bees. And it was a 5-story house that kind of like a New York house, just went straight up. And I lived there, and Liza lived there, and 3 or 4 or 5 other people lived there. We all had to go because the bees were so intense that they had to come in and move the bees. Not kill them, just move them. And I went to the Peninsula, and that particular week, there was 2 movies on TV about homeless people, and there was also a lot of stuff on CNN about it. And I was really very, very touched at how sad the situation was. And I didn't have any solutions. This is not a political song. What I did was I was just kind of looking out at Hollywood and the sparkly lights and the people that are walking up and down the street. And I thought, how wild it would be if I was out there and I didn't have a place to go, if I didn't have a place to sleep.
this would be, to me, the most frightening thing of all. Kind of like, just as long as you have enough money to pay your rent, you can accept just about anything. But as soon as somebody starts threatening with taking your house away, that's really frightening to me. So I just wrote a song about a girl that had been brought up on the streets and was very much kind of a street gypsy. You know, she didn't have any special place to live, but her family was there and her friends, and she was kind of a street angel. And this really rich guy fell in love with her and really tried to convince her to go with him and to not be poor anymore and to leave her world. And in the end, she really couldn't do that. She really couldn't leave her life. She really couldn't change and be a rich man's lady. And so she, in order to make him let her go, and in his mind let her go and go on with his life, she let it be known to him that she had killed herself, that she had committed suicide, that she'd fallen down the steps and been killed. And you don't hear voices anymore. He doesn't hear her voice anymore. And she went away, you know, because she really couldn't live his kind of life. So it is about somebody with no home, but it's also about being very attached to a way of life.
I wrote Street Angel just by myself, and the ones that I write just by myself on the piano are always a little towards the classical kind of thing. They usually stick pretty close to the way that I did it, because even though I'm not very good on the piano, I have a certain style, you know, and I have a certain timing, and my foot kind of goes, you know, and it's like, and they like my timing, so they kind of stick with the way that I did it. And with Street Angel, it was very, very simple. And then at the end of when we were done recording, I went back in, and Waddy Wachtel, who's a very good friend of mine, came in and put a very searing kind of lead guitar thing over the top of it, which was not there for all the months that it was recorded, which I loved. I knew I had him come in and do a couple of things because I had missed his presence on the record. So he came in and played, and I thought that really sewed it up, because before it was really like just me by myself with nothing else.
She takes just like a woman. Yes, she does, and she makes love just like a woman. Yes, she does, and she aches just like a woman. But she breaks just like a little girl.
The vocals were done pretty differently than I usually do them. They were pretty much done between me and the man who was recording them without bunches of people around. He was very adamant that he and I work on the lead vocals. And I'm just used to, like, you know, inviting all my friends, and it's lead vocal night, you know, and then I just sing all of the songs, you know, about 5 or 6 times each, and we get vocals, you know. But this time we'd take a song like every night, and so we got our vocals very quickly. Anybody that works with me sort of finally gets the idea that I'm not the kind of person you want to make sing a song over and over and over and over. It's not going to be that good. But the first 2 or 3 times I do it, it's probably going to be real good. As far as the singing of the song, I'm really not very open to people telling me how to sing something, because that's the one thing that I feel that is my forte. You know, if the one thing that I am good at is going out on stage and singing to people live when it's not being recorded, you know, when it's just at live entertainment. And so when people start telling me, well, I think you should sing this different, I think you should sing this a little softer, I think that you're being too passionate with that line, then I start to get all befuddled, you know, and then I start to not know how to sing it. So usually people back off very quickly. Everybody will always try, you know, but they'll see I go kind of white, you know, my face turns kind of very pale, and I sort of start looking kind of sick. And they just back off. They realize immediately that the best thing to do is let me run with it. And then after we've gotten a good vocal, I come in, and then is the time for them to say, on this line or that line, maybe if you just delivered it a little softer, maybe that would mean more. And then I can dig that. I can understand that and appreciate that and go out and fix that line. As long as they let me do the whole thing myself first, then they can talk about it. I treat them just like I expect people to treat me when I'm singing. I don't say a word to them about how to play. Mostly what I do say to them is, you can have as much time as you want. I'm lighting incense, I'm putting a candle out there. You can try all kinds of different things. I just love to hear you play. I'm just honored to be here and hear you play. So you just do anything you want. And I think that I release them, and then I get so kind of bubbly about it that they go out there and they feel good. You know, I mean, it's like they have a good time, because nobody is out there with a stick saying, now I want you to go do, 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 do. You know, I would never say that to a guitar player, because if I was a guitarist, I would hate that. And I'm sure people do. I'm sure a lot of people that are a lot more, I'm not very strict or rigid, you know, so I look at the whole thing as kind of a celebration or a party or just a wonderful time that we're spending together. It would be really hard for me to, like, really produce, to be that taskmaster.
You never promised me a rose garden. You never said it would be easy. You never promised me a leisure lifetime. You only said you'd never leave me.
There's been several songs that have been recorded 4 or 5 times by Fleetwood Mac and by me and did never make it onto a record. And then, you know, whatever was the reason, the stars were in the right place, we recorded it and it worked. Rose Garden I wrote on the guitar when I was about 16 years old. I was a sophomore in high school. I was very upset about something that I saw, just a little something that happened, and I just sat down and wrote that song. And then I always wanted to do it, and it always just seemed, again, not the right time for it. And this time I sat down and I actually played it on the guitar. I don't play guitar much anymore. The people that I was working with said, well, this is a serious song, and it's a good song. You know, it's a little kind of country, and let's do it. Let's do it, you know. And having Bernie Ledden, you know, with his Eagle background and his acoustic, he's so good. You know, he just picked it right up, and it was done. I mean, it was that was one of the songs that was worked out very, very quickly. And it is recorded exactly the way that I knew one pick. I knew that Joan Baez done da-da-da-da-dun, da-da-da-da, that kind of thing. So it was like, you never promised me a rose garden. And da-da-da-da-dun. You know, that's how it was. And so they just recorded it the way that I played it for them on the guitar.
You never promised me a ring made out of diamonds. A band of gold you said was all you could buy. You never said I'd be a rich man's lady. And oh, my darling, no, you never lied.
Shangri-La record. I appreciate this so much because the Street Angel record 7 years ago was the last 4 years of the Clonopin, and it was really a bad record. I did not twirl. I did not dance. The songs were dull. It was everything I never wanted to be. It was a nightmare to try to promote a record that I knew in my heart was not a good record. And so now this record is so exciting for me. When you have a really bad experience like that with the Clonopin, when you come out of it, life is really different and you really do appreciate everything a whole lot more. And you know, I do stop to smell the roses now. I sit here and I go, you are a lucky girl, Stevie Nicks. Don't ever think you aren't. You're lucky to be here. You're lucky to be alive. You're lucky to be living in this wonderful house. You're lucky you didn't lose your entire fortune and, you know, scare all of your friends away. You're lucky that you are where you are now and that you are happy.
Klonopin destroyed my brain, destroyed my creativity. It took 47 days for me to detox from Klonopin, and it was horrible. My hair turned gray. My skin molted. I couldn't sleep. I was in so much pain. Legs aching, muscle cramps where you're like this. The rock star in me wanted to get in a limousine and go to Cedars-Sinai and say, give me some Demerol because I am in pain. And the other side of me said, you will fight out this 47 days.
I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I'm wild-eyed with my misery, yeah.
I went up to 175 pounds, and I'm only 5'1". After being a rock and roll sex symbol for all that time, and then all of a sudden, to be this little fat girl was just so unacceptable to me.
I could see the disappointment in people's faces when they'd see me walk in. And I would just go like, oh, I'm so sorry I'm not the Stevie that you used to love. You know, I'm so sorry I'm not her anymore. Either I lose this weight or we are not going back on stage. Because I cannot not look like Stevie Nicks. I created this image. I created the clothes, the hair, the whole look. If I can't be her, then I'm not going to go on anymore.
Wasn't that I didn't love you, I just couldn't make you see that as hard as I tried to make it all better, it was not better for me.
When I started to write this record, it was right after the Street Angel record. So it was 1994. After the summer of 1994, I went to Newport Beach and I wrote the last song on the record, which is called Love Is. So I knew I had my ballad, my last song, because that's how I like to end records. After that, I just had really a lot of trouble. Nothing was coming to me. And I went home to Phoenix, and my friend Tom Petty was playing in town. So the night before, I went and had dinner with him. And I asked him not to write me a song, but when he got back to LA, maybe we could work on something together. And for Tom, that was a red flag, because the one thing I never ask people to do is help me write my songs. I don't really collaborate. I collaborate after they're written. I give Lindsay the song Gypsy, but the song Gypsy is full-on written when he gets it. And then he arranges it and kind of puts it together. But the song, the verses, the choruses, they're all there. So when I asked Tom that, knowing me as well as he does, he knew that that was not a right question for me. It was something that I would never say. So he basically said, I know these last years, the Klonopin, everything has upset you to the point that you are now feeling very shaky. But Stevie, nobody's angry with you. Everybody makes mistakes, Get in your car and go home and start writing your songs and get over this, because this is over. Don't go on grieving about this for the next 10 years. It's so wild when somebody that you really respect says something like that to you, because you listen. A million other people could have said exactly those same words to me, and I would have just gotten defensive and said, you don't know what you're talking about. But when he said that, I really was like a little squirrel. I just went bing, totally listened. And when I got in my car and drove home, I felt like a different person walking back through my front door. So I did go home and I did go sit down at my piano. I don't remember that I actually wrote anything that night, but I had a whole different vibe when I came home.
You got the softest lips, love it, touch of your fingertips, love it, knowing you won't let go.
Cheryl came into my life over a movie called Boys on the Side. That's how I met her. And I did one of her songs on that soundtrack. When I first met Cheryl, I don't think I asked her to produce my record, but we really talked a lot about music and stuff. The next time I saw her was probably a year later, and that time I really said, would you be interested in producing this record? And she was like, ooh, that's a lot. That's a big responsibility. But she totally got into it. She was really there for me. Before I started this record, I wasn't going to make another record because I was really so bummed out by people trying to explain to me why the music business wasn't the same. With all the internet piracy, nobody's going to buy it and everybody's just going to steal it. Then me as a craftsman who crafts these songs, it's like me as a painter. If I painted that picture over there and then somebody's just going to walk in and say, I think we should share this and drive off with it, I can't condone that. So I wrote a song called Moonlight. And I wrote it after seeing the second Twilight movie, New Moon, and I loved it. And I said, you know what, now I'm gonna have to do a record because I can't just put this little song out without a record to back it up. So even if it doesn't sell any records, I'm ready to make a record now.
What happened to her? I thought she was to the eyes of love, I saw her through her tears.
the song was done. And we thought about calling other guitar players, and that didn't work out. And I just said to him, put your guitar on and just go out there and play something. Just play another lead. It doesn't matter. His philosophy is, if we don't like it, darling, we won't use it. So just go out there and just play. He wrote what I think is one of the greatest rock and roll riffs ever on anybody's record. And it's there, and it was done right off the top of his head. Those are the magical moments. That was only one of many unexpected magical moments.
Like a ghost through the fog, the ghost is gone.
2005, I was on tour with Fleetwood Mac, and I got an invitation from Walter Reed to come and visit the people that were there. And so I said, of course I would love to go. So I went on a Sunday, and I spent from 2 o'clock till about 8:39. And as I'm leaving, I'm going down into this big, huge, grand entryway at Walter Reed that had been empty when I came in. There were beds everywhere. There were doctors and nurses running everywhere. There were family people there, family members. And I was standing in the middle of this, bells and whistles going off everywhere, and they could not find my car, of course. So I was just standing there, bordering on hysteria. And finally, they found the car, and ambulances are coming in. And I am pushed into my car, basically, and I'm driving away, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, you know, I walked into Walter Reed Hospital, a rock and roll star with not a care in the world. I leave this hospital a soldier's mother. I went back to the hospital. I mean, I did go back many times, but I went back to my hotel, and I wrote this poem, which then, over the last 4 years, became this song. It is called Soldier's Angel. I am a soldier's angel, as the eyes of a soldier through the eyes of a soldier. I am a soldier's mother.
You can't have an opinion if you're going to walk through the doors of Walter Reed or Bethesda. All you can do is support what's happened. And it's really not about the war at that point. It's just about the kids who came home from the war. You know, you talk to them, you sit on their bed and you talk to them, and they tell you their stories, and you don't tell anybody what they say. You can't. They allowed us to take pictures for the families, because I had Karen who takes these amazing pictures. So I said, if you let her take photographs, then they'll have great pictures. If you take Polaroids, they'll be terrible, and they'll never show them to anybody. Pictures last forever. They trusted us, and trusted us all through the 5 years that I went. I haven't been in a while, because Walter Reed and Bethesda merged, and since they merged, it's a lot harder to go there. They used to really let me have the run of Walter Reed, and I was there till 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And now, you know, it's like, well, you can come for 2 hours. And I'm like, I can't do what I do in 2 hours. So I haven't really figured out a way to quite get myself into the two hospitals merging, because, you know, the Navy is a lot more strict than the Army. And so it's like Bethesda is a lot more strict than Walter Reed. So now that they're together, a lot more strings have to be pulled, and it's just harder. But the reason I wrote Soldier's Angel was that I knew that there would be a point where I can continue to go and visit and try to do whatever I can do just as a person, and take them on an iPod with 937 songs on it. I knew that if I wrote this song, Soldier's Angel, that would last forever. So when these 20-year-old kids, or 18-year-old kids, or 25-year-old kids, or 30-year-old people have lived another 15 years, they'll always have Soldier's Angel. Same way with New Orleans. It's focus on Katrina and what it did to that town. And so I think those are the two moments in the film that are super poignant. It really isn't even about music. Those two are really about the incoming soldiers and about the effect that Katrina had on that city.
In the midst of the sea of dreams lies a perfect storm. And in the sea of tears lies a city ghost. In the spirit of the Mardi Gras, where the people hope that their lives will get better.
You film every day for 10 months, pretty much, and then you spend the last month and a half actually making sort of a little bit more fancy music videos, and all in the house and in the backyard, and the horses and the owls, and everybody's in costume. You know, for that first 9-10 months, though, you wash your hair twice a week, you have it blown out and flat ironed, you do your own makeup, because you're not going to have a makeup artist live at your house for a year, so you do get to see the real us, because after the first week, you start to go like, well, I can't really be worrying about the fact, you know, that my hair is a little bit dirty, because this is what we're doing is a lot more important than that, and I don't have time to go up and spend 3 hours on my hair. I'm walking the other way on that one. And you get to really see us make a record, and people don't get to see that anymore, and that's really why we did it, was because we wanted people to feel like they were right on our shoulder making this music with us.
to the song from across the room. And the crowd fades away and we stand alone.
Every day I woke up and went like, I can't wait to get up, jump in the bathtub, put on a little makeup, and run downstairs and greet Dave at the door. Dave just would go like, it's just one more great adventure, darling. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Who cares? So he set the whole foundation with that thought. And we eat and gossip and pretend that we're like in the 20s with, you know, Coco Chanel and Man Ray. And it was like a whole experience. It was just the year that I was the most happy. The reason I called it 24 Karat Gold is because these are the golden songs. Some of them were recorded by Fleetwood Mac and I wasn't crazy about the arrangement, so I pulled them. Some of them were recorded by me and I wasn't crazy about the producer's direction and I pulled them. Sometimes you have too many mid-tempo songs. So these are those songs that were all supposed to be on records somewhere between 85 and, you know, 1990, really. And just for whatever my reasons were, I pulled them back. I really love the one that's just me and a piano that's called Lady because it was the first piano song I ever wrote. Lindsay and I moved to LA in around 1971 and somebody from a rehearsal studio gave us an upright piano that they were going to dump. I didn't know how to play. I said, oh, I'll take it. This is the first song I ever wrote on a piano. So I held this song back all these years from my work and from Fleetwood Mac because something in me said, maybe somebody will write a musical about this, like Showboat or something. And so I never offered it up to anybody. It just stayed on this little demo.
I know that things have to change, but how to change them isn't clear. I'm tired of knocking on doors when there's nobody there.
They were Polaroids. They really weren't selfies. They were self-portraits with a plug that plugged into the Polaroid on a tripod. I was lighting director, stylist, eye makeup, clothes, everything. It was really fun.
I got the cat house blues. I wear the highest of high heels shoes. Oh, oh, darling, it's hard to be surrounded where the women are lazy and the men are rude.
I only had a few lines. And I love being a part of it, and it scares me a little bit. And Ryan is just a mad genius. Why I relate to it and why I relate to Glee is because I think that Ryan just writes about misfit. Whether they're kids that don't fit in high school or whether they're witches that don't fit into society. He just writes about people that don't fit in. And I love that. I would never have accepted something like this if I didn't really believe in he and Brad as these amazing writers, you know. As far as being an actress, wouldn't want to do it, never will do it. I would not be interested in being an actress for anything, especially after watching real actresses work. Because I did get a chance to really watch Jessica Lange and really watch Emma Roberts, who is evil in the best sort of way. And Jessica Lange's just like awesome. Just watching the four, Gabby and Lisa, and it was amazing. And Lily, I'm her muse, I'm her musical muse, and she lives in the swamp and she never sees people, and so she just listens to me. It's the ultimate music gets you through. If you're in a horrible mood or if something bad happens, just put on your favorite music and it'll get you through. That's Lily's whole deal in this show, is that I just put Stevie on and I listen to her and I'm good.
You know, I was talking to an old friend of mine the other day, telling her all about you. She just begged me to come have a sit down with you. She's a white witch, and try as I may, I cannot get her to play in the shadows with me. Who are you?
You must be Misty. I'm Stevie Nicks. Is she all right?
You owe me $5. I told you she was gonna do that.
I wanted to be a great writer, and I wanted my writing to go far and wide. I feel that I have affected a lot of people, and I feel that people do love my songs, and that makes me feel really good. That makes me feel all that love, and that's all I ever wanted to do, was really affect people with my music, and it seemingly has gotten out to all generations.
Now here you go again, you say you want your freedom. Well, who am I to keep you down? You could be my silver screen, blue-green colors splashing. I would be your only dream. Now you look at me and see what I've known for so long. Sad that you could be so lovely and so wrong. And I saw my reflection in the snow-covered hills till the landslide brought me down.
There's Night of 1,000 Stevies, which of course I've never really been to, but everybody dresses as me and goes to this big, huge party, as me in some part of my life, whether it was the very beginning of Fleetwood Mac, or whether, the different clothes I've worn, and they go and they have this big, huge, massive karaoke concert where there's just gazillions of people, and they just have a ball. It's like a big Halloween party every year.
Who knew that it would still be a raging party today? I think it's amazing, because what is my favorite day? Halloween. My favorite thing in the world, getting dressed up in fantastic costumes and going to a party. And that's what they do. If I ever do decide to come to your party, you'll never know until I go up on stage to karaoke while I sing Edge of 17 and whip off my mask. And there I'll be singing that song, and it'll take you a minute to go, is that really her? My songs, they are all my babies. Sometimes, when I'm on tour, there'll be, one of the old songs that anyone would think I was just extremely tired of. For some reason, I'll be kind of reliving the reason I wrote it, and that experience will come back into my whole consciousness. And then when I sing it, it brings that back, and I'm able, and always have been able, to really go back to the moment of inspiration, of where each song came from. And I don't think that you get bored or tired of your songs when you have always that inspiration of why you wrote them. My songs are all written about stuff that really happened to me. I don't make up songs. If I have to go make up a song, then I'll just wait around for the next inspiration to happen. It's like, somebody walks by you and smiles at you, and something about that particular smile makes you go like, all I saw was that smile, and maybe you go and you write down all I saw was that smile, and then you go to the piano and you start writing about why that smile meant something to you. Then you write the song, and then it becomes a classic song, and then it's 100 years old, and you go, why am I still enjoying singing this song? Because I can still remember that smile.
What is love? Can the child within my heart rise above? And can I tell
90 years old. I don't want to be laying in my big, gorgeous bedroom with music playing and 15 little Chinese crested dogs and going like, oh, I'm so brokenhearted that I didn't find the one. And then I would have to answer myself and say, yes, but you did find several the ones who you wrote really great songs about. And that's why you're living in this absolutely spectacular house with everything that you want and anything that you could possibly want to buy. And it's like, so maybe this is just all the way your dad saw it when he said, Stevie will never get married.
My particular mission maybe wasn't to be a mom and a wife. Maybe my particular mission was to write songs to make moms and wives feel better.
Your own knowledge, if you ever think that you don't matter, I want to tell you something. To me, you're the only thing in the whole world that matters.
I feel that it was all really worth it. And I think that, you know, if it all came to an end, I would feel very good about it right now.
No, there probably will not ever be anybody else that's quite as nuts as me.
Wait a minute, baby. Stay with me a while. Said you give me life, but you never told me about the fire. But now it's gone. It doesn't